If you've listened to the latest 4 episodes, you've heard Christoph's journey through China, from the big cities to the more laid-back vibe of Dali. But there are still a lot of questions left. What's China actually like as a digital nomad destination? What works, what doesn't, and what takes a bit of time getting used to? So in this bonus episode, we're continuing that conversation. We'll zoom out and look at Christoph's full 4 weeks in China, the good, the challenging, and some of the things that might surprise you. You'll also meet Meng, a Chinese woman who made this lifestyle her reality and living in a way that we define as a digital nomad.
At that time, I feel like I should focus more on the moments and also the people around me. So that's why I want to have another lifestyle.
We'll also take you along to Christoph's final night in Dali, a farewell dinner with the community he's been a part of.
So what are we having?
Oh my god, I cannot translate those menus.
So this is a bonus episode about China, the deeper dive. Welcome to the Nomad Summit podcast.
Hello. Welcome.
Let's do a wrap-up of your 4 weeks in China. What were your expectations going in there?
It was all about driven by curiosity, and I wanted to figure out, on the one side, what it actually is like to go solo nomading, like working remotely while traveling different destinations inside China, as well as researching the domestic digital nomads and remote workers community in China. And I think both of these expectations in that sense have been 100% fulfilled. I got a lot of findings, but they were probably maybe not exactly what I had anticipated.
What surprised you the most?
I was told by a lot of Chinese digital nomads who I had met at this beautiful little event in Chiang Mai, who had invited me, that accessing the free internet through VPN in China would be no problem and everyone does it. That's definitely exaggerated. It is a pain. Every workday started with 20 minutes of figuring out what VPN configuration works today and tweaking around with settings of different VPN providers that I was using. I had both paid plans at Proton VPN as well as NordVPN, which were both supposed to work well. In the first couple of days, they didn't work at all because I had not sat down and tried to figure out how I can tweak settings. Then I got around it and found one setting that worked. The next day, that one didn't work anymore, and I had to use another setting, and that was basically every day, but sometimes none of them worked. So fortunately, with the tools that I use for the important time-critical parts of my work, which is mainly Zoom and Pipedrive, they work without VPN. So you can access them through the Great Firewall. And I was actually quite surprised that with Zoom that works so well because, I mean, in the end, it's a tool of free speech where like accessing WhatsApp or Telegram did not work without VPN. Zoom does. And so does Pipedrive. And that was also a funny workaround. Like I used other access tools, like, for example, for my WhatsApp for Business, I use an online tool, web platform called 2Chat. That both allows browser-based access to WhatsApp for Business, as well as has an API connection. So you can send WhatsApp messages through API tools like Zapier. Like, for example, if someone books a consultation with my main business, then they get an automated, not only a confirmation, but then also a reminder via WhatsApp. And so that service works. You can access that in the browser, but you cannot access WhatsApp directly. So for things like Google, if you want to access Google Drive, I mean, we saw that in our workflow here for the podcast, where we use a Google Drive for the show notes and photos and raw cuts and stuff. For most of the time, it was big headache to access that.
Yeah. A thing that surprised me was that it seemed like both in Shenzhen and in Shanghai, those big cities weren't really nomad cities. You had to go out in the countryside.
Definitely to meet a remote work community and people who travel around a bit. I mean, of course, they surely also go to these cities, but you don't meet them in a hotspot like a co-working space or a co-living. There are dedicated places for that are more rural for two main reasons. The first one is the quality of life outside of a city with access to fresh produces, clean air, landscapes, and activities, outdoor activities. That's much better than inside a big city. And the second reason is affordability. Like everywhere, the big cities are expensive. Housing, restaurants, everything is much more expensive than if you go to the rural countryside. And these are the two driving factors why places like DNA and Anji are so successful, as well as my final destination in Dali, which is much more rural.
Yeah, it seemed like you were very happy with Dali.
Absolutely, yes. The Chinese told me beforehand that Dali would be like the Chiang Mai of China. And I absolutely get these vibes. So it has an old town. It is in the mountains by a lake, stunning views, really amazing nature. Even though I didn't go far outside of the city, but just like my room was in the top floor of the NCC co-living. And I had a big window in each direction. So in one direction, I had the lake view, like a really wide view. And in the other direction, I had the mountain view. I didn't look up how high those mountains were, but they had snow on top.
Wow.
So really stunning scenery.
One thing that I found really interesting, and it goes back to our conversation that we have in almost every episode, what is a digital nomad? It seems like the Chinese have a different definition than you and I have agreed on somewhat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we touched on that in the first two, I think, out of the 4 episodes, where it became clear in China, everyone who can work remotely and thus choose from where they want to work, like where they want to relocate to, are considered digital nomads. And that's what places like the one that I visited first, the DNC, are made for, that I want to attract. But actually in Dali at CYC, I met someone who meets your and my classification of a digital nomad. So a young lady who works remotely and travels around and enjoys that. Welcome.
Thank you.
What's your name?
My name is Jia Meng in Chinese.
Do you have an English name?
English name is Echo.
Echo?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And it's not the first time that we meet.
Yeah. We met in Chiang Mai.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. When I just walked into the yard here at CYC, I got recognized by someone who's seen me on stage in Chiang Mai about a month ago.
Yeah, in the Digital Nomad Summit. Yeah.
Yeah, you attended some of our side events of the Nomad Summit, but also this big Chinese digital nomad conference a little bit south of Chiang Mai.
Yeah.
You are a remote worker.
Yes.
And just like myself, you work in the insurance industry.
Yes.
How does that work in China? You mentioned you work for a company that is based in Beijing.
Yeah.
Tell us about your journey. How did you become a remote worker?
Yeah. At first, actually, I worked in a company for almost 8 years. Just go to the company every day. And then, because of the COVID, it hit me that I want to have another kind of lifestyle. And I just get to know this concept of digital nomad, and I want to have this kind of style.
How did you hear about that?
Because I follow the social media accounts of Nomad's coffee. In Chinese,
the Chinese nomad couple, Summer and Fang, who we had, I think, on episode 32 of this podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, we met them in Chiang Mai, and they were guests on our podcast episode here as well.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So you found them on social media, and then you thought oh, wow, I want to do the same.
Yeah, because of the COVID and also a lot of disasters happened those years. And when I was in the previous company, I pushed myself to be a machine, to work machine. And I feel like I don't care anyone else. I just want to finish my work. And so I stayed in front of the computer all the day.
So you had this office job before COVID, and then I guess with COVID you were working from home, and that's when you had this realization that you want to change your life.
Yeah, because of the COVID, I feels like I need to focus on the moment because before I get used to like work hard for the future and
Like this
to get
typical lifestyle that our parents and grandparents have had, like
yeah.
work hard until your retirement and you can enjoy life then when you're 60.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I have to work hard to save money to buy a house in Beijing maybe. But at that time, I feels like I should focus more on the moments and also the people around me. So that's why I want to have another lifestyle.
That's a beautiful story. So from this realization,
Yes,
what came next? How did you actually make it happen? And today, obviously, you have this freedom to work from wherever you
Yeah.
want.
yeah.
But how did you get from one point to the other? Did you quit your job and find a new one? Or?
Yeah. Actually, I want to quit my job for a long time, but it takes me 1 or 2 years to get prepared and then just quit my job.
Okay.
And we can't get money from the government because their debate is getting high. And so that's why my previous job is not a good industry now. It's not a like growing industry. It's actually
Declining.
declining
Okay.
industry. So I want to quit for a long time, but
And then you made this decision. And then how was that the day when you walked to your boss and said like, I quit?
yeah, it's just someday like I think I can't do this job until the retirement. So I need to like get a change, maybe better to be early because I have bad mood when I do my work in the company.
How hard or easy was it to find a job in China that you could do remotely? Because right now you're on an employment, like a normal employment, or are you working as a one-person company, or how do you do that?
I think I'm kind of a freelancer because
Okay.
I need to get the customers myself.
Okay.
But my company can provide the products and they give us training. So it's not so difficult like to as an entrepreneur.
So you found this job in the insurance industry and now you work remotely. When you come to places like this one here in Dali, do you see many other people living similar lifestyles to yourself?
No, actually not.
It's still
I
very
see some
unique.
developers, but they are not in the same area. And I think most people in Dali, they just come here for a holiday, half year or 1 year, and they go back to the big city.
Is it your first time in Dali?
I came here last year in the summer because the climate here is cool than the other places.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. Where did you travel else? I mean, we've met in Chiang Mai in Thailand before. Did you go abroad to other countries as well?
Yeah. After 3 months of training in the insurance company, I went to Chiang Mai for about 1 month. And then I lived in the co-living space. Chiang Mai Inn is a Chinese co-living space. And also Chiang Mai, you know Chiang Mai?
Yes, of course.
The most expensive one in Chiang Mai, maybe. And then I went to Penang in Malaysia.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, for 2 weeks with another digital nomads. And then back to China and went to Liangzhu in Hangzhou in April.
Okay.
Because it's the best season. And then I went to Dali in the summer.
So you're very independent, huh?
Yeah. But my long base is still in Beijing. And because I have to pay the rent of the house.
But nobody's living there right now.
Yeah, nobody. So I decided to maybe, because the rent in Beijing is very expensive.
Yeah.
So I decided to move to Dali.
So you will give up your place in Beijing?
Yeah.
Okay. Life of freedom.
And after 1 year's discovery of this digital nomad's life, I found that not so many difference with the other people in the other cities. The elements of a better life is the same, I think. Good relationship and it's exercise and good food. The only difference may be the freedom to organize your day and choose the location where you want to live.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Were there any moments on your trip throughout China where you thought, okay, this is not for me. I'm looking forward to getting back to Thailand or Vietnam? Or is it a place that you want to go back to?
I had several moments where I was craving, for example, human connection. like where I was really looking forward to my next destination here in Vietnam, where I'm staying in Saigon and other places for a month, where everything is a little bit overcrowded, but very human. In China, everything is digital and automated. So especially as a solo traveler, if you enter a coffee shop, you do that for the coffee and you do that for a little chit chat with the barista. Try that in China. They will just point you to a QR code. Even if they speak English, they will just point to the QR code, tell you, order here. Scan the QR code with your WeChat, get the mini app, order inside that, and then wait for your number. So human connection, human interaction is something that I feel gets very much lost over the hyper digitization and automation. When I opened the stage at the Phuket Summit, I introduced myself as, I'm Christoph and I'm coming from the future. Because that's what it feels like after traveling China for a month. At least on the side of tech, using AI, using hardware, I got myself also a little competitor of the Aura Ring, the Chinese version of a smart ring that comes at a much cheaper price and without an ongoing subscription. Now I know a lot more about my sleeping patterns and my heart rate and stuff. So it caught me a little bit. I'm also one step further into the future now, but China definitely lives 10, 15 years in the future in terms of tech, but 20, 30 years in the past in terms of development of society. Things like gender equality, LGBTQ rights, or even things like smoking in public. I mean, I'm in my early 40s, and in the last 10, 15 years, the people close around me, they don't smoke anymore. It feels like smoking is a thing of the 90s, or old people smoke. Like my mom smokes, her generation smokes, but I don't know anyone who's really a smoker craving cigarettes. In China, they smoke inside bars, they smoke in the train. So it really feels like teleporting back in time. And what's also quite surprising is this contrast of people individually or in very small groups being extremely friendly and helpful and supportive. But as soon as the groups get bigger, that people blend in and become more anonymous, the friendliness is gone. Like you see that in traffic, and you see that like in public transport, in the subways, in the metros, in Shenzhen and Shanghai, how people, once the doors open, don't wait for the people to get out of the train, but start pushing in, which is, I mean, it's just uncomfortable for everyone. And there's no gain in that. Just they believe they get in a little bit faster. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
In both Shanghai and Shenzhen, it felt like everyone is doing that. Every stop, you observe that people are pushing in and across different cities, across different lines, different times of the day. So it seems to be really a pattern.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned at some point that you had a conversation where you were able to talk about topics that you thought kind of was off the table, like Taiwan. Unfortunately, there weren't any recordings of that. I would have loved to be a witness to that conversation.
Yeah, I would have loved to record that conversation, but probably with the microphone on the table, the conversation would not have happened to that extent.
Did you feel that you had any restrictions on what you could talk to the locals about?
Before I traveled to China, I was basically given a red list of topics, and one of them was like, do not mention Taiwan, do not raise this topic. But then actually, yes, it was raised by that person. I won't disclose the name here. And we had a really good conversation about one of my topics of high interest, which is geopolitics in conjunction with world history and foreign politics of power. And my key takeaway over this and many other conversations, I was feeling much less restricted than I expected. So people are in private, of course, talking about opinions, criticizing their government, etc., just as you would expect that in any other country in the world, except North Korea, maybe.
Did the trip overall change the way that you see China?
Not in a positive way, not in a negative way, just in a more nuanced way.
Right.
And the mosaic has a lot more little pixels, a lot more colors now. So yeah, it's not black, it's not white.
Mm-hmm.
It's all colors of the rainbow, plus black and white.
So the final verdict for the nomads listening to this, should they consider China, or is it still too complicated, too early? What will you say?
I will definitely go back. I was at one point even considering to make it a habit in my future annual plans of traveling to max out those 30 days of visa-free stays in China and visit different corners of China for a month every year in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I would do things differently in terms of preparation, for example. Like, I would not go there with an intense workload. So if I have a phase where I know there's a lot going on or there are deadlines to meet, and I will need to use tools like Google, like here for our podcast thing, this was quite painful, I guess, for you as the producer as well as for me, like getting data delivered and getting responses on things when there is a publishing schedule. That's not fun for any party involved. So I would organize these kind of things differently in the future. And that's also my advice to everyone, saying like, yes, China is absolutely worth exploring. You can work from there remotely. Just make sure that your schedule works in a more async way and you're ready to access your usual tools, maybe with a little bit of delay. And also, make sure you take some hardened hardware. Maybe next time I would even see if there's a good way to bring my own Wi-Fi hotspot. Like I used to have one, for example, that directly as a piece of hardware connects to a local Wi-Fi, but then builds a VPN tunnel and basically connects my devices then only indirectly. This is just a suspicion, but as I'm in my main job working a lot with sensitive data, I use tools that are highly encrypted. I use Proton for mail and other things. I use a Swiss company for highly encrypted cloud storage. And I sense that me trying to access those tools have raised some automated red flags in Chinese systems. And I suspect that my hardware was subject to targeted attacks because I got some really interesting notifications of some security tools that I'm running about like attempted unauthorized alterations to the firmware of my laptop and things like that. So, I mean, my security tools prevented all that, but it kept coming back. So I felt I was subject to targeted attacks, and I will definitely still need to do that, but it's definitely do a full image recovery of my laptop and basically wipe it entirely to make sure that there's no malware left there.
Really? Wow. But I must say that having worked on this episode and listening to it, obviously, I really got my interest of going back to China back. And I've even been searching cheap flights from Chiang Mai also to escape the smoky season, which is a lot worse than I thought. Yeah, I want to go back and visit more of China, definitely.
Yeah, I recommend from Chiang Mai, you can easily and quite affordably fly directly to Hong Kong. And from there, it's a 14-minute high-speed train to Shenzhen, and you're inside China. That's an option, but also there are other direct flights, I think, to Chengdu and other places. And also now in times of some disruptions with flights going through the Middle East, there are connections to Europe as well, I think with China Airlines, with stopovers in Shanghai or Beijing. So there are interesting options to have a longer layover and explore other places. I definitely want to, maybe next time, depending on the season, if it's a colder season, I would probably spend some time on Hainan, which is a big island in the south and quite tropical. And if it's a warmer season, I definitely want to go to Beijing, where I haven't been yet, just also because it's way too cold there this time of the year. So if it's more like July, August, maybe next year I'll want to have a look to and go to Beijing.
Yeah, and also go and see the real Great Wall of China, not just the Great Firewall. Let's wrap up this episode from China with your farewell party.
Yeah, when I left Dali on my last evening, the communities came together, actually not only from NCC, but also from CYC. And we had a big farewell dinner that then later escalated into bars and drinks and stuff. But listen in what we had for dinner.
你好剑手青，想吃啥？
So this is my farewell dinner. It's my last evening in China. And we came together with a bunch of people sitting around a typical Chinese round table in a private dining setting.
豌豆尖
都可以，因为芋头会比较少。
好
And this is the group discussing the order. So we will have a turning table here in the middle where everyone can taste something of everything. And everyone shouts what they want to have. So what are we having?
Oh my god, I cannot translate those menu because there are steak soup, there are barbecued duck, there are like 白切鸡, like the chicken, but like with dipping sauce, and there are beef slices with dipping sauce. There's also beef tendon, like deep fried beef tendon, as well as 茄盒
Eggplant, fried eggplant with
fried eggplant,
肉碎.
Yeah, stuffed with meats and lots of like vegetables as well, and it's very difficult.
Yeah, I have no doubts. Because this is the best restaurant, yeah?
Yes, this is the best restaurant in Dali.
So that was Christoph's final night in Dali and the end of his journey through China. 4 weeks, 4 very different places, and a country that's not always easy to understand, but definitely worth experiencing. From the hyper-modern city where everything is digital, to smaller communities where connection still plays a big role. China is full of contrasts. And maybe that's the takeaway. It's not a simple yes or no when it comes to working remotely from here. It depends on what you're looking for, how you like to work, and how much you're willing to adapt. But one thing is clear, if you're curious, China will challenge you. And it will probably surprise you. A big thank you to Christoph for taking us along on this journey. And if you've enjoyed this mini-series, there's more coming your way here on the Nomad Summit podcast. This episode was hosted by Christoph Huebner and me, Palabo. Our theme music is from Dali, the audio Nomad, and produced by me with my production company Radio Guru. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.
Produced by radioguru.co.uk.